Hi everyone, my name's Tim. This is my YouTube channel where I like to talk about books and things. Um, I've got the cup of tea because this is a thought exercise rather than a book review or anything like that. So, when people say what kind of books you like to read, I almost always say fantasy books. I love fantasy worlds, I love magic, I love dragons, I love creatures, I love epic adventures. I love Lord of the Rings. I play Dungeons and Dragons with my friends. I enjoy that genre. But there's lots of fantasy book series that I just haven't read. Um, for a multitude of reasons. A big one is that a lot of them are so long. And you pick up a book in a bookshop and you're like, is this the first one? Is this the eighth one? Um, is this the third in the spin off? So it's difficult to figure out. One thing is that I've been watching quite a lot of YouTube about books, booktube stuff, and a lot of them are about fantasy. And so I've learned quite a lot about fantasy series from just hearing people talk about them. And this video is going to be 10 fantasy series. I don't have two hands because I have a cup of tea. 10 fantasy series I want to get into. These are kind of in order of preference, but it's a bit loosey goosey. So, number 10 is the First Law series by Joe Abercrombie. So, this is modern. I think it's 9 books, something like that. It's like a first trilogy, a second trilogy, and then some standalones. This is known as Grimdark, which I hadn't heard of. When you first tell me Grimdark, I think of in the Grimdark feature of the universe There Is Only War from Warhammer 40k, which is actually a pastiche on that kind of overly gritty. But Grimdark is about violence, grit, morally grey characters. Not morally grey, just bad characters. Everyone's bad, doing bad things. Um, yeah, and it's known as like the best of that. The books themselves, I don't think are too long. I don't see anyone kind of lugging them about. Yeah, so that's number 10. Number 9 is Magician, the Magician series, or the Rift War cycle, or the Rift War saga by Raymond Feist. So this is a whole series of books, but I'm just talking about the first trilogy because it was written in the 80s, I want to say. And I'd like to know. I like going back and I quite like reading classic literature because then when you read modern stuff, you know where it came from. And people say it's really, really good. I don't really know that much about it, but I'm interested in it. Number 8 is Malazan, Book of the Fallen by Stephen Erickson. So this is a 10-book series, and I think all 10 books are chonkers. And as soon as you look it up, everyone just tells you how complicated it is. And I find that quite interesting. Um, the reason why I think it was written in like the 2000s to 2010s, I want to say. I think he wrote 10 books in 10 years, basically, which is very impressive. Um, so I'm interested in it because it's complex and it's interesting and it's a whole world, and that's one thing I really like. It's like a full encapsulated world. Um, the reason why it's not higher is I think I probably need to improve my fantasy literacy before reading it because people say it's very difficult to get their head around, and it's just a bit intimidating. Um, Number 7 for me is Realm of the Elderlings by Robin Hobb. This is 16 books in total. I think it's 5. Yeah, it's 5 different series. 4 of them are trilogies. One has 4 books. So that's quite good because you can read a trilogy, have a break, read another bit, have a break. This is the archetypal example. I remember Robin Hobb books being on covering the fantasy shelves when I was a teenager going to look at Waterstones and not knowing what any of them were. Like, is this the first one? This is the first of a new series. Okay, that's the second. Wait, that does that link to that? Is it the same? I remember the book covers were just like just Robin Hobb in like big fancy text, so you had no idea what the book was actually about. But people say it's very slow paced, and it's about characters and things like that. Something that I'm interested in reading. Yeah, so Realm of the Elderlings by Robin Hobb. Number 6 is Discworld by Terry Pratchett. I feel like I should love Discworld. I feel like it should speak to me at a fundamental level because I love comedy and I love absurdity and a bit of brevity in most serious situations. The thing is, I looked it up and I think I've read 11 of the 41 Discworld books. I think I've read that, and that's a lot. I don't remember any of them. Really. I remember very few bits. And that's because I just kind of read them in any order. People say, oh, you can read it in any order. I'm reading them. I've read a few from different series, not in the right order. I read a lot of them when I was a teenager, so like 20 years ago. So that's probably a big part of why I don't remember them. But even I read The Weird Sisters, the one with witches where it's about Macbeth. I read that one like a couple of years ago, and I liked it. I remember it's about Macbeth. I can't even remember what the book's called. They just don't embed in my mind at all, and I don't know if that's just because they sacrifice kind of plot for jokes, or just because I read them a long time ago. But I'd like to get back into it. And what I'm going to do with Discworld is I want to read, because there's like all different series within Discworld, I want to read one like all the way through and then go, cool, I've done that. So like Death, for example, has 5 books. I haven't read any of those. So I want to read the 5 Death books and I'm like, cool, done, figured that out. So yeah, that's number 6 is Discworld. I feel like I've dallied in it, but it hasn't stuck with me yet. So I want to give it another chance. Read it properly. Number 5 is Mistborn by Brandon Sanderson. So Brandon Sanderson was someone who I hadn't heard of until I started watching BookTube videos. And now, like, it's all anyone talks about. He writes seemingly more books than most people read a year, and he plots everything out, talks about magic systems, something like a term that I'd never heard of till I heard of Brandon Sanderson. And Mistborn is, I don't think it's his first book, but it's the one that everyone recommends to read. And it's a trilogy, so you can read that and enjoy it. And then there's he has like a whole universe of things taking place on different planets, but like that's too much for me to bite off at the moment, but I'd like to give Mistborn a try. See if I like it. Number 4 is Gormenghast by Mervyn Peake. So this was written in I think it was written in the 60s. Trilogy. I think he died before he could finish it, but it's a trilogy. I think there was a 4th book. This is gothic, atmospheric, set around Gormenghast Castle. It's a classic. Again, it's not 17 books in a series, it's 3. I just like to get a grip on that because it sounds really different to other stuff. And it sounds quite achievable. And yeah, I'm just interested in it. I don't really know that much about it. I know it's about set in a castle, and the first book, like, the prince or king or whatever is a little boy, so it's more about the staff, and then the second book's about Titus Groan, I think is the main character. So yeah, I'm interested more about that. Number 3 is The Once and Future King by T.H. White. So this is just one big book. I think it was originally 5 books, and they put it into one. So it's one big book. It's Arthurian legend. It's knights. It's the film Sword in the Stone. It's got Madam Mim in it. Yeah, and I think it's one of those that I just missed out reading it when I was a kid. And I think I'd really like it. So number 2 is The Chronicles of Amber by Roger Zelazny. So this is I'm just talking about the first 5 books. Again, I think they've all been put into one book, and it's like 700 pages, so it's really not that much. It just sounds really weird and wacky and interesting. It's about parallel universes, and our world is just one of these offshoot universes. And this person's a prince, and they have no memory. And I think they get like a limo that drives them from one universe to the other, or something really weird. It's written in the 70s, and it sounds very kind of digestible and almost a bit pulpy, which I'd quite like. But I like adventure stories. Um, and now we've got to number one. So previously I've talked about, hey, this is quite digestible. It's quite easy to read. It's not too many a series. And number one is the complete opposite of that. It's The Wheel of Time by Robert Jordan. Again, a book series I had never heard of until 4 years ago, when they announced they were doing a show and everyone was going mad about it. And I watched the show, and I could sense that it was quite classic fantasy. And I'm in the middle of season 2 right now. I'm still watching it, which I think is a good indication of what I thought about the show. I thought it was okay. I thought it was interesting. I liked the idea of the world. I like the fact that the Aes Sedai can't lie, but they can, weasel words and things like that. I thought it was really interesting, and it's a 14 book series, and they're all very long. But hey, you can only read it by starting. So I want to start reading The Wheel of Time by Robert Jordan. That's number one, and those are my 10 fantasy books / series that I just want to get into and read a bit more. Anyway, I'm going to finish my tea. Let me know in the comments below what fantasy books that you want to start reading. Anyway, I'll see you later. Please comment, please like, please subscribe, all that kind of stuff. It does help. The more of that, the more the YouTube algorithm just like feeds this out to people. And I'd really appreciate it. Anyway, cheers. Bye.